Hey friends, what is up and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the Nevermind Book Tag, or essentially it is books that you've changed your opinion on. So they can be positive changes, they can be negative changes, just going over what you originally thought of books and how your mind may have changed in the future. So today I'm actually really excited to do this because I have been going through Goodreads. If you guys have followed me for a long time, you'll see that I deleted my entire TBR shelf, and it's because I want to eventually only put books on there that I physically own. And I've just been, at the same time, kind of going through all of my Goodreads and re-rating books that I had originally rated. Now, just as a little bit of a backstory, when I started BookTube, I wasn't really reading at the time. I mean, I've always been a pretty big reader, but it was like I got back into it. I had, instead of reading like 1 or 2 books a month, I was reading like 16 books a month. I'm down to like 8 or 9 books a month, which is perfect for me. But I went through all of my Goodreads shelves and re-rated some books that I had rated incredibly high. And I think the reason why I'd rated them incredibly high was partly because of hype, partly because when I first finish a book, I feel better about it than I think I would if I waited like a week or 2 and then rated it. If you follow me on Goodreads, you will have also seen that usually when I finish books, you'll see that I finish them in blogs or on Instagram, but I won't actually rate or review them on Goodreads because, like I said, I always end up rating things really, really high when I first finish them and not really taking the time to think about how I actually feel about them. And I've also changed the way that I rate things, as well as while I'm reading them, trying to look at them, I don't know, more analytically, as opposed to just like how a book made me feel. Because it tends to be, when I finish a book, I'm really proud of myself. I'm really happy that I've conquered something. So I tend to rate it 4 or 5 stars. And I want to be more honest in a way with myself about how I actually feel about books. So this is a really good tag for me. I'm actually really excited to do this. I'm going to tag a few people in the down bar of this video. If you have not done this, you should do it. Actually, looking at the questions for this, it was a lot of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first one we have here is a book you rated high but have now changed your mind about, and or a book you've rated low and changed your mind about. I'm going to be doing both of these. So a book you rated high but have now changed your mind about, for me, I'll put a picture here on the screen for you guys. That would be Strange the Dreamer. I don't actually own this book anymore because when I first read this book, I thought I loved it so much because it was, I don't know, unique in a way. It follows Laszlo Strange and he remembers a city that everybody else has kind of forgotten, and he goes on this journey to actually visit the city, and they find all these people with their histories, and there are these gods essentially that live in this, I want to call it like floating island, floating part of the city, and he gets tangled up in all of their history. And I, at the time, thought it was really cool. I mean, I really liked it. I think if you go back into vlogs, you'll see me raving about it. But I've read so many books since then and really had time to establish what kind of writing styles I really like, what stories I do find actually really interesting. So it went from being a 4 to 5 star read to about a 3-star read for me. It was good, it wasn't great, and I did actually really dislike Muse of Nightmares, and I think people have like the opposite effect, like they like Strange the Dreamer, but they love Muse of Nightmares. But I'm just not, I think, the biggest fan of Laini Taylor's writing style. I think that she is very poetic in a way, and I'm not a big fan of that. So I ended up rating this book really high initially and ended up rating it pretty low, or at least lower, the next time I went back and actually thought about what I fully thought of the book. And then for a book I rated low but have changed my mind about, that would have to be, I mean, honestly, if I don't like a book, it is not often that I later feel differently about it, but there is only one book I can think of that I felt like that for, and it would be The Goblet of Fire. Goblet of Fire is my least favorite of the Harry Potter books because I do not like Ron in that book. He just seemed so different to me. He didn't seem like an accurate representation of the Ron that I knew or know, and I'm re-listening to it right now, and the further I get into the book, the more I think as an adult I can kind of understand where Ron is coming from, and I can kind of see how it's accurate to how he actually is. I mean, Ron's pretty carefree, but he does have a lot of pride, and I feel like his pride really gets wounded in that book, so it does make sense to me more so now that that is how he responds. So that's definitely a book that I rated lower. I definitely would give it like 3.5 to 4 stars, but now I would give it a firm 5 stars. At this point, I think I would give every single Harry Potter book 5 stars. For me, it's just one of my favorite series, if not my favorite series of all time, and for that being the lower of the books that I've ever read, it's nice to have it back to a 5-star read. Number 2 is book you bought because of the cover but might not read. For this, I will put another picture on the screen here for you. It'd be Little Fires Everywhere. This is a book that I have heard the author spoken about a lot, and I ended up getting these books on, I think, Book Depository. I got pretty much all of her books on Book Depository, and I have just looked at the cover that I bought, and it is just so incredibly gorgeous, but I'm not sure that I'm ever going to read it. It is along the lines of like kind of thriller-ish books and like thriller or I don't know, just general fiction books. And for me, it takes a really special point in my reading to be able to read something like that. I do like the fantastical. I like a lot of science fiction. I like a lot of fantasy, something that's really different from like everyday life. Those are the books that I tend to really like to read because reading is my form of escape. So books like this, it's hard to want to sit down and actually read them. So that is why I haven't read it yet. I need to. I've had it for a really long time. It's super gorgeous. I don't know, I'm just not really in the right mindset for it yet. Oh, book you constantly put on your TBR but can't seem to get to is number 3, and I'm gonna be completely honest, for me that would be Reaper at the Gates by Sabaa Tahir. If you guys saw my series video that I did where I talked about all of the books or all of the series that I need to finish, Reaper at the Gates was on there. And the reason why I think I'm hesitant to read that is for a couple of reasons. I am worried about the outcome of what happens to the characters that I really, really love, as well as I fear that the story might start to get a little bit convoluted. I kind of feel like that at the end of 2. It was still a very firm, very enjoyable read for me, but I'm worried in the 3rd one that that's what's going to happen because the series, it was supposed to be a 3-book series, and I believe now it is going to be 4, and I'm worried that we're stretching the series a little bit too thin. And if you saw that video, you also heard me talk about how it takes a special author to be able to carry a series on for me now, because I feel like a lot of the series fizzle out or they're just not as great as they used to be. And so with this series, that is something that I'm really, really worried about because I am super invested in the characters of this book. So it keeps making it to my TBR, and I think I've read like 20 or 30 pages of it, but I'm not really happy with where things are for characters currently in the story, and I think I'm afraid that it's just going to go downhill from there. So that's why this one always makes it onto my TBR, but never actually makes it into my brain. Number 4 is a hype book you aren't sure you're interested in, and for me, I was thinking about this, and I don't tend to really buy into hype, but there was a book that did come out that I did want to support, but then realized that maybe it just isn't a book that I'm really going to like, and it would be Priory of the Orange Tree. This book is not only incredibly massive, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really hesitant. For what I could read this one book for, I could get 3 or 4 other stories. Like I could read 3 or 4 other books. So I've been kind of battling that inside my brain recently, but also I'm just really not into high fantasy. I hear that this is high fantasy, multiple POVs, and it is a standalone. And I'm really not in the mood to try to absorb that much information. It is an incredibly intimidating book, so I'm not sure that I'm ever going to be somebody who actually gets around to reading Priory of the Orange Tree. It was actually on sale on Amazon Kindle for pretty cheap recently, and I thought about picking it up, and then I was just like, this book is literally going to sit on your shelves, your digital shelf, for forever. Just pass on it. And if I ever really want to read it, I can borrow it from the library, or I can try to later on pick up a different copy of it. But this is a book that it's just, everybody really loves it, and I want to love it, but I don't know, I'm just not really into that kind of book right now. And I just don't know when I'm really going to be into a book like that. Oh, number 5 is a book you DNF'd. I have actually DNF'd a lot of books this month, and I would say the one that was the hardest for me was actually Red Rising. I know a lot of people who love Red Rising. I know a lot of people who love the series. I know a lot of people who love the characters. And for me, the writing style was too clinical. The story wasn't as interesting as I thought it was going to be. I don't know if it's because, it's basically about a society that uses it's like a caste system, and the lower caste system is who minds what runs the upper caste system and the upper caste. And the reason why I guess that just doesn't really appeal to me is that's not a type of story that really appeals to me. I don't really like the stories where like the powerful use the weak in that way, like physically use the weak in that way. And it's about a red who becomes a gold, which is like the highest you can become. And the story was interesting, but the way that the main character becomes a gold and how he like gets into their society, I felt like it was really rushed. I didn't really connect to the main character, and it just wasn't for me. And people are like, oh, well, you got to read the rest of the series, it gets better. And I don't really like that mentality. I don't think that if a book is not strong at the beginning, then you should continue with the series if you're not enjoying it. The only series I've ever felt that way about is actually The Dark Tower. So this isn't a series that I think I'm going to be continuing with. I actually just gave the books to my roommate because I was like, maybe you'll like this. If not, sell them to half price. But for me, that's the most recent DNF that I can think of that really, really affected me in a way. So the next one is a book you were loving until the ending made you think twice and or you weren't sure you liked until its epic ending. Now, I don't have a book that I've read that I was like meh about until the ending, but I do have a book that I was really enjoying and then the ending kind of screwed it up for me, and that would be The Outsider by Stephen King. This is one of my least favorite Stephen King books. I think I would give it 3 stars, 3.5 stars. The rest of the book is very interesting. It's about a man who's accused of raping and killing a small boy, and it is because there is a skinwalker who has essentially turned into him and is doing these atrocious things. And there are a couple of characters from the Mr. Mercedes trilogy that are in this, and it was really good until the ending of the book. And I think I even mentioned this when I wrapped it up, or I think I talked about it in a vlog. I felt like the ending was really rushed, and I felt like the ending didn't really make any sense to me. And I was upset about that because it had such a great build, and Stephen's usually one of those authors that from beginning to end, I'm really into the story, but I could have cared less about the ending of that book. It was really sudden. It was really not really well explained, and I feel like the mechanics of it in a way didn't really work for me. There's a character that just goes in, kills a skinwalker, that's the end of it. And I was just like, this makes absolutely no sense to me. And it was really lacking. So I think that book would have been a 5-star if Stephen would have wrapped it up any other way, or just could have had the same ending but done it, like executed it better, and I would have been fine. But definitely The Outsider was one of those books where the ending of the book just completely let me down. Number 7 is a series you were loving and then decided to not continue, and or a series you weren't sure about but now want to continue. Now, for a series that I was loving that I'm not going to be continuing with, I actually picked A Court of Mist and Fury. So I know the first 3 books are done. They did the little series thing in the middle, the little book in the middle, and then they're doing another series. I'm counting all of that as one series. I don't care to continue reading anything in this world. I don't care to continue learning about these characters, about this world. I think I got my fill of it in A Court of Mist and Fury. That's the only book out of the entire series that I really truly liked, and I don't feel the need to continue on with the series. I don't have a thirst to know kind of what happens. And then a series that I wasn't sure I was going to continue with and that I will absolutely be continuing with, these books are not out yet, but it would be Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I will be continuing on with whatever books he puts out in this series. I think that it is, for me, one of the more well-developed books I've read in a long time, and I'm excited to see where the story goes because Spensa, the main character of that book, was one of my least favorite characters of all time, and then she slowly starts to develop, and you can really see it, and you're like, holy crap, and by the end of it, I absolutely loved her. So definitely that one, I think that as my first series that Brandon has written for me, I think that it was a good choice. And I think I'm glad that I started with that and not some of the higher fantasy stuff that he has done. But I'm really excited. I already have the second one pre-ordered. I can't wait to have it in my hands. The next one is a genre you used to like but now don't read, and or a genre you used to not read but now love. So a genre that I used to not read but I really like now is contemporary. You guys know I've been reading a lot of contemporary. It's a bit weird because, like I said earlier, I like to read books that are very different from the life that I live, like not modern day, not just normal everyday kind of stuff. But contemporary for me has been a godsend recently. It's definitely a type of genre that I like to read when I'm feeling really bogged down, when I need something simple to read, when I'm feeling very like overwhelmed and stuff. So I really like that. But a genre that I used to read a lot of that I don't read a whole lot of now would have to be horror. I used to really, really, really love horror, but the older I get, and I would say the worse my mental health gets, it is hard to read those types of books because, unfortunately, I hate saying this because I feel like there's a negative connotation with this statement, but it's very triggering to me. It's very triggering to my OCD a lot of the time. It takes a really special horror book for me to be able to read it. I'm having a lot of trouble reading Stephen King right now because he is the absolute worst when it comes to triggering my OCD, because he writes about really mentally messed up characters a lot and he does it really well, and it just kind of overwhelms me at the same time. So definitely horror. Horror is a genre that I miss a lot because I am not currently partaking in any of it. And number 9 is a character you changed your mind about. So a character that I have changed my mind about, I think would be Spensa, like I said from Skyward. Spensa is, when you first meet her, a very abrasive, very like in your face, kind of violent, because of the life that she has been dealt essentially. Her father is accused of abandoning their people, and because of that, her and her mother and her grandmother are all basically exiled. They can't have normal jobs. They're allowed to live with everybody else, but they're not able to work, and a lot of people consider her family like traitorous. And it really sucks for her because, I mean, obviously she didn't do it, but the family has to pay for the sins of their father. And when I first met her, I did not like her. I didn't find her story interesting. I didn't find her as a character interesting. I found her really obnoxious. But the further along you get in the story, the more depth that I feel like Brandon really built up for her, and the more enjoyable of a character she became. And she is actually one of my favorite female characters because I see the growth in her, which is all I ever ask from any character, but especially my female characters, because I feel like normally, especially written by male authors, they're written a certain type of way and I don't really enjoy it. And I don't know, I really like the way that he made her just human and to deal with the things that she's really dealt with. And I truly, truly, truly love her, and I love that book so much. It's definitely one of my more favorites of the year so far, and she's one of my favorite new characters of the year so far. All right, guys, so that is the Nevermind book tag. Like I said, this is a lot of fun. I will list the original video down below, as well as the creator's channel down below, and everyone that I tag. If you could answer one question for me, I guess I'd ask you a book you DNF'd and why you DNF'd that book, because I have DNF'd 3 books this month and I'm feeling real bad about it, but I have my reasons for some of them and I can't wait to talk about it in my wrap up. But yeah, that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are having a good week. There were no videos that went up towards the end of last week, and that is because the reading rush absolutely took over everyone's feed, and I was getting lost in it, and I didn't want to post, and I didn't want to take the time to post something because it was getting a lot less engagement than it normally does, and sitting down and filming and thinking of everything and like writing everything out, it is really exhausting. So I didn't want to continue to upload stuff that people weren't going to be seeing. So I'm sorry for that, but we are back to regularly scheduled content. But I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video.